How many of y'all still remember that epic moment when Cristiano publicly boycotted Coca-Cola? The company's stock dropped, causing a $4 billion loss. There is no doubt that drinking soft drinks is bad for our health. But what if I told you all that the same drink, Coca-Cola, helped to decode and solve a 28-year-old cold case? Mandy Stavik, an 18-year-old girl, went out for jogging with her dog. As the time passed, the dog returned home, but not the girl. She was found dead in a nearby lake.
When I rolled her over, it was kind of a real shock.
But no matter what method used, the investigation team could never come close to 28 years to find the killer. Acme is a small county in Washington, US, with a relatively small population. People often visited the same restaurant and bought groceries at the same store, where everyone pretty much knew each other. The area was so safe that people didn't even lock their houses. But this all changed due to one incident. November 24th, 1989, Mandy Stavik told her mom that she is going out for a jog with her dog Kyra. No one might have thought, including Mandy, that this could be her last jog. She started a run from outside her house and planned to continue for a few kilometers before heading back home. During her initial mile, there were people who noticed Mandy as she had returned home from her university for Thanksgiving, making it easier for people to recall seeing her that day. But as time passed, her German Shepherd dog returned home alone. When Mandy's mom saw the dog, she knew immediately something was wrong. It wasn't just her intuition. The dog was trying to tell her that something had happened to Mandy. The search for Mandy began.
There was a massive hunt for her.
Along with Mandy's mom and her brother, a few people from neighborhood started tracing Mandy's trail, hoping to find her or any clue. But as the sun faded and darkness arose, their worst fear became a reality. Soon the news spread all over Acme. Close to 1,000 people, including police and helicopter, joined the search operation. After 3 days, they finally found Mandy's body floating in a nearby lake. She was wearing only her shoes, floating face down in the water. The autopsy report stated the cause of death was drowning, but Mandy wasn't just a good athlete. She was also a competitive swimmer. Also, there were no signs of struggle at the place of incident. Something didn't add up, but later the medical report provided the full answer. She had been sexually assaulted and got hit on the head before drowning. Now, this case was no longer a missing complaint, but a rape and murder of a young college girl. Acme was shaken. People paid tribute to Mandy with not just sadness, but with a fist of anger to somehow find the killer. How did the local cops, along with Mandy's family, persevere for 28 years until they found the killer? Watch until the end. This case will teach us something important. The 1980s was a time when serial killers in the US were making headlines, creating fear among people who thought that a serial killer might be on run. The police carefully started sketching a blueprint of what exactly happened on the day of incident. The jog trail was about 8 miles long, mostly an empty road surrounded by tall trees. Police first started questioning all the people who possibly saw Mandy jogging. Since it was a small county, there were hardly few people on the road, but one person caught the police eye. Police even released a rough sketch. This was David Suchi, a local drifter who was seen by people around the same time Mandy was on the road. Police had a strong reason to suspect him. During the medical examination, doctors found an unidentified male DNA inside Mandy's body. However, David Suchi was soon removed from the suspect list as his DNA did not match. Even after collecting nearly all of Acme County's DNA, hoping for a match with the victim, but nothing brought them close to the killer. Not just in Acme County, the DNA that was found did not even match in FBI DNA database. It was becoming clear that a new cold-blooded killer was out there somewhere, leaving no trace behind for the authorities to follow. "20 years passed, more than a dozen police officers came and left, and thousands of DNA samples were collected. The case was slowly turning into a cold case. Detective Kevin Bowie, who had also studied at the same school as Mandy, in 2009, he became the lead officer to continue the investigation. Kevin was so committed to this case that he even traveled all the way to Cambodia to investigate a suspect who had been previously ruled out in early investigations.
So it's another dead end. Yes.
But neither Kevin was able to get any evidence nor the suspect DNA matched. But 3 years later, the sheriff's office received a major breakthrough, a tip from two mothers, Heather and Marley. This meeting was a complete coincidence. In fact, Heather and Marley weren't even friends. They just happened to meet at a water park while their kids were playing. As both moms were chatting casually, out of nowhere, Heather brought Mandy's death. Both Marley and Heather mentioned the same name, someone they believed might have killed Mandy. Tim Boss had been to the same school as Mandy. Both Heather and Marley had strong reasons to suspect Tim due to their past disturbing experience with him. During a school trip when Heather was about 15, Tim sat next to her in a school bus and out of nowhere he tried to touch her inappropriately. Marley had a similar situation when Tim forced her into physical intimacy. For a long time, both women wanted to mention Tim's name, but after this discussion, finally gained enough courage and contacted the police. Kevin Bowie immediately jumped back into the investigation, knowing he had no time to waste. Tim lived less than 2 miles from Mandy's home, and in fact, Tim's younger brother was Mandy's friend and classmate. In the beginning, we mentioned police collected DNA from nearly the entire Acme County. So why wasn't Tim's DNA matched? The reason was that Tim's family and Mandy's family had a good relationship, and police overlooked collecting DNAs from Tim's family, a big mistake that likely delayed the case for 28 years. The next day, Kevin knocked on Tim's door to finally collect his DNA. When Tim opened the door, he refused to give his DNA, giving some excuses. Police quickly organized a team to track Tim 24/7 to somehow get the DNA. By this time, Tim was living with his wife and 3 kids, working as a delivery driver for a local bakery. Tim's brother, during an investigation, stated that Tim was antisocial and mostly spent his time alone. After a breakup in school, he started developing hate towards women. Tim got married at 22 to a schoolmate, Gina. Gina revealed that her marriage with Tim was a living hell. He treated her as if she was working for him, and she even planned to leave, but Tim threatened to take away their 3 kids, leaving her with no options. It was 20 years of living in prison with no way to escape. All these investigations and interviews made Tim as prime suspect, but the law needed solid evidence to convict him. That's when police found a way to get Tim's DNA. Kim Wagner, Tim's bakery owner, agreed to help the police. She never had a good relationship with Tim, a very disrespectful one. She began monitoring him closely. After waiting for 3 months, the day finally arrived. Tim poured a Coke into a glass, drank it, and then walked away, leaving the glass behind. Kim seized this opportunity, quickly collected the glass, and called the police immediately. The wait was over. Kevin received the call from the DNA team. Yes, the DNA was a match.
30 years after her death, the man accused of murdering Mandy Stavik is about to stand trial.
On December 12, 2017, Tim was arrested for kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder of Mandy Stavik. While everyone thought that the case would end easily after the DNA match, Tim came up with a completely new plan to change the course of investigation. Tim claimed that he and Mandy had a secret affair, and the day before the incident, they met near the house and had a physical encounter. He argued that this is how the DNA was found in Mandy's body. This shocked Mandy's family. Even though they knew that Tim was lying, they still needed to prove his allegations were false. But the prosecution team, led by Dave, came forward with full evidence, showing that Mandy and Tim had no connections. They never studied together, and no one in the town had ever seen them talking, not even once. Tim's own brother helped disprove Tim's claims, as he knew Tim had no contact with Mandy. Tim's lie couldn't hold for long, as his own family started giving testimony against him. Tim's wife Gina made a strong statement, revealing that after the police came to collect his DNA, Tim had met with his mother and begged her to blame his deceased father for the crime. His father had passed away 10 years before the trial, but Tim's mother refused. On the other hand, Tim's brother stated that Tim had asked him to spread rumors about Mandy's character, claiming she wasn't well behaved in the school. All these statements became key evidence. After 28 years, the verdict was finally out. Tim was convicted for all the charges and sentenced to 27 years in prison without the possibility of parole. He did not receive life in prison because the prosecution team could not prove that the murder was premeditated. Finally, Mandy's mother, her sister, and Detective Kevin were able to find peace once and for all.